Shalom, everybody. Shalom, my friends. Shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And I am very excited and delighted to be talking to an actress and a delightful cabaret person. And, of course, as we all know, offspring of one of the founding families of American television. Ladies and gentlemen, what can I tell you about LUCIE ARNAZ? What can I tell you? Let me find my notes and I'll be able to tell you about LUCIE ARNAZ. Well, she was on Broadway in They're Playing Our Song with our friend Robert Klein. She's had a couple of TV shows of her own. She won an Emmy Award for making a documentary about her parents, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. And we are going to have a ball talking with the delightful LUCIE ARNAZ. Shalom, Lucy.
Oh, shalom, shalom, Dave, Rabbi, Sol, all of those people that you inhabit in your life.
Oh, yes. You don't want to know the people I inhabit in my life. It's a terrifying thought. But so you're working. Let's first tell one of the reasons that you're doing this is that you're going to be doing your cabaret show, and it's going to be at Feinstein's 54 Below. Where the hell's my notes on this?
I'm actually coming into. Oh, you know what? There's a huge echo on this thing. Is there a way you can deal with that? Because I'm hearing everything I'm saying 2 seconds after I say it.
Oh, do you? Well, is your computer on? Have you been listening to the show or something like that?
No, it's 8 o'clock in the morning where I live here. So.
No, because you sound absolutely perfect on this end. That's the weird part.
Okay, well.
Can we make do?
If I can. Oh boy.
I'll try not to echo too much.
No, it's me that's echoing, and that's why it's hard to talk because everything I can't do this. Should I call back? Let me call back and see if I can do better.
Call me right back. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, live television radio, ladies and gentlemen. Well, at least for a moment, we had LUCIE ARNAZ on the program. But yes, she is going to be at Feinstein's 54 Below from September 30th to October 2nd. And by the way, this is the time, if you have people who loved I Love Lucy, if you have people who also like LUCIE ARNAZ and her show that she had on TV, and she even had a talk show for a while, then go bring them to the computer. Now's the time. She's going to be calling back. Let's answer the phone. Shalom.
Shalom.
How are we doing?
Oh, God, it's still doing it.
Why am I I don't know why the hell I'm echoing.
You're not. No, you're not echoing. It's me. Every time I say something, I hear myself say it. So I have to I'm going to put my face away from the telephone, and after I speak, then I can listen.
Maybe that's is it better now? Try saying something.
No, it's terrible.
Oh, my God. Anyway, fiber optics in 2019, and we can't get LUCIE ARNAZ to have a normal phone conversation on the thing. I'm sorry about this. But the good news is that you sound absolutely wonderful. So, question, and you can answer in an echo if you choose. What are you doing in your latest cabaret show at Feinstein's 54 Below?
I have a new show that I put together last year that I've been doing around the country called I Got the Job, Songs from My Musical Past. And I haven't really, in 30 years of doing concerts, I've never concentrated on the musical theater, which has been the majority of the work that I've been doing with my life. So this is the first time I'm actually telling the stories of the shows that I've been in and doing some of the music from that, all the way back really to what started me in show business and in high school. And it's just kind of a fun mini retrospective of my life on the musical stage, at least the first 45 years, as I like to say.
Right, Hullaby. I mean, you still have many years to go. You know, you were in Pippin.
Yes, the second half should be much better.
God willing. So I assume there'll be a song from Pippin you'll do, and a song from...
Yes, there will indeed. And good, great stories about the people that I've worked with along the way and stuff. I know you're over where you were, and I'm doing 54 Below on the 30th of September through October 2nd, 7 o'clock shows at 54 Below.
Yes.
Feinstein. But I'm also doing the show for one night at the White Plains Performing Arts Center on September 27th. Couple nights before I open at 54 Below. So if there are people who live up there and don't want to do the drive into the city, you'll see the same show if you come to White Plains Performing Arts Center.
So all the plain white people of White Plains can go see LUCIE ARNAZ kind of trying out this show before she brings it to 54 Below. So Were you involved in the 40th anniversary of their playing our song? Did they bring you and Robert Klein back to?
Indeed. Oh my God, it was an amazing, one special, unique night on Broadway at the Music Box Theater. Robert Klein and I in a 22-piece orchestra, Debbie Gravitt, who was in our one of the original three girl voices, and Hal Shane, who was part of the original company. We had our original conductor, Larry Blank, and we did it on the exact 40th anniversary, Monday night, February 11th. It was quite surreal and beautiful.
Now, that was your first Broadway show, was
right.
The original 40 years ago. They're playing our song. Did you feel, everybody feels pressure, of course, when they're first on Broadway, but was there extra pressure on you to prove yourself a star, a Broadway star, just because of who you came from?
Probably. I mean, not in my mind. I try not to think about those things, but you can't deal with what people bring to the theater in their own mind. I had been doing theater for about, let's see, that was 79. I started in like 72 doing summer stock and regional theaters on my hiatuses from the Here's Lucy show. And then I got the national company of Seesaw for 7 months. And I did Mac and Mabel, and I did a lot of regional, well, not a lot. It wasn't that many years, but I mean, I had done shows. And so when I came into New York with playing our song, I came in with Annie Get Your Gun under my belt, which was the entire summer at Jones Beach in Massapequa, Long Island.
Yeah.
My first New York Times review, my first Hirschfeld caricature. So I had a little bit of history that supported my being able to actually be on a Broadway show. But sure, I mean, to this day, I think I'm always going to be looked at as her, his offspring, and what does she do? Is she different? That's part of the gig, you know?
And to be honest, I remember you read or you wrote in an interview, they asked you, you said at some point, it would be amazing if there was ever an interview where they asked more questions about me than about my parents or my parents' relation to me. It would be like the greatest day of your life when somebody finally did an interview with you where they concentrated specifically on you, as opposed to your background.
Yeah.
This is not going to be one of those interviews, but just wanted to let you...
I was about to say yes, and I'm still waiting.
Not going to happen today, but we are going to ask more stuff about you. So let's hear some funny, kooky experiences, because you've done so much musical theater, so much live theater. Any funny anecdotes, any things that went wrong, any amazing moments? Share.
Oh my God. Well, one of the stories I tell in the show, I kind of hate to give it away here, but I won't do the whole thing because I can't act it out because you can't see me. But you know those moments when you think you're so damn smart because you've done the show for months and months and now you're really good. You know, you really know this part and you got that character wrapped around your little finger, and then you do a scene and you finish the scene and in your head you say, damn, that was good. That's the best I've ever done that.
Right.
And then you turn around to do the next moment or sing the next song and you go completely up. You go blank. You have not a clue where you are or what's coming up. And then you have to crawl out of that moment in just horrifying embarrassment. And there was one huge moment like that in My One and Only with Tommy Tune that I still talk about because it froze my brain and it was so humiliating. But you know, I say the moral of the story is never congratulate yourself in the middle of a performance.
You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There's time enough for remembering lines when the deal is done. So any Tommy Tune stories, by the way?
Oh God, well, Tommy Tune and I have done so many shows together. We started with the national tour of Seesaw, and we did Mac and Mabel together.
Well, let me ask you, did doing Seesaw
tour for?
No, I wanted to ask you.
I don't know, close to a year.
Hold on, you're not letting me do my joke.
I have a million stories about Tommy too. Let me see. What can I tell you? By the way, if you say something while I'm speaking, I won't hear you because I have to put the ear part of my phone away from my face. Otherwise, I'll hear myself echoing. So you have to talk like in the old days when you had ship-to-shore radios. One person talked and then you went over. And then the next person talked, and you go, over. Remember that?
Oh, well, yeah. Not only that, I'm talking now, but not only that, but isn't it amazing that in this day and age, you tune into any of the news programs, CNN or MSNBC, and they're talking to a correspondent somewhere. And the interview, the actual vocal content of the interview is 2 minutes long, but the interview takes 6 minutes because they have to ask a question and then hours pass by the time the
I
other
got
person
7
hears.
second intervals in between the question and the answer. Yeah.
Oh my God! But
I
the
know.
7 seconds feels like much more than the usual delay. It's just like,
Well, this reminds me of being at my dad's house down in Baja, California, years ago in the 60s, and there was no phone service down there, and all we had was a ship-to-shore radio. And he had to call my mother every once in a while to say the kids are okay. And so we'd have to get on this. It's a phone you have on your boat, you know, and you have to call the ship-to-shore radio operator. Mi querida, dos, tres, cuatro, four. And then you'd say what you say once they get the person on the phone. And when you'd say, hi, Mom, I'm fine. It's nice down here. We're all okay. Over.
Wow.
And then she'd talk. And when she finished, she had to say over. And you couldn't talk to each other while the other person was talking. That's what this is like today.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you about acting with Tommy Tune and a whole bunch of different
Actually,
shows.
I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No.
So
Thanks.
one of the memories that pops into my head when you say that is I did not grow up a tap dancer. I learned a little bit at a time, a little bit on the Here's Lucy show, a little bit in the show here, a little bit there. So dancing with Tommy in my one and only, which was an all dancing musical, and especially tap dancing, was really like getting a college degree for me. It was just huge. And I was terrified, even though I knew him very well and he was one of my closest friends. I wanted to be as good as Sandy Duncan, as good as Twiggy, as good as Stephanie Zimbalist, as good as whoever came after me, you know. And I fell down on opening night in Los Angeles in the water dance number, which he warned me about, because he said there's water on the stage and you have to be careful because we carry our own stage for the water dance, and it sometimes buckles, but we know where the buckles are. But so, you know, when you do the backup tap step and you're backing up, just be careful. So of course, my knees are shaking like, you know, I think I'm going to be shot at sunrise when I was doing the number, and I backed up, and of course I slipped and I fell down, and I got up so fast out of fear and humiliation. I leapt up and yelled at Tommy, keep going! And we did, and it was fine. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks. I could not sleep at night. I was so humiliated by that. But then Tommy fell down in the middle of a number, which made my day. I was so happy that happened. I just stood there and looked at him and went,
Oh, that's nice.
Laughing.
That's lovely. That's really.
No, but it helps, because I thought if Tommy Tune can fall down, and trust me, when he falls, it's a long way down.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, what's that thing? He's 6'15" or
he's
something.
He's 6'6", and he's skinny. You know, it's
no.
like
He's tall.
like
he's
a pool umbrella falling.
He's 7'6", isn't he? Yeah, he's over 7.
No.
Oh, no?
6'6".
Oh, okay. Well, it's not that. I mean,
that's tall enough. For God's sake.
Look at me. I'm 5'2". This is to tell you something.
Okay, so to you, he is 7'6".
So let me. Let's start talking about famous people. Let's talk about some more famous folks. For example, one of the great American songwriters, Irving Berlin, called you, didn't he?
No, he actually sent me a telegram on my opening night of Annie, Get Your Gun.
What did it say? Do you remember? I assume you still have it.
Oh, I do indeed. I talk about it in the show. We had our original Broadway conductor. Our conductor, Jay Blackton, was Irving's original Broadway conductor when they did the show with Ethel Merman. And so he knew that Jay was doing this show with me, and he sent me a telegram that said, "Dear Lucy, I'm sorry I can't be with you tonight, but Jay tells me that you're wonderful as Annie. Next day on your dressing room, they've hung a star. Good luck. I'll be rooting for you, Irving Berlin." Yeah.
But wait, I thought also didn't you sing for his 100th birthday in Italy, and he asked you to do that personally or something?
No, by that time he was not talking to people as much, I don't think, when he was 100. But I was invited to go to Italy through the auspices of the Italian government to the Teatro de Verde outdoor amphitheater. They celebrate a great American composer every year, apparently. Yeah. And they asked me in 1988 to do a show about Irving Berlin for his 100th birthday. And it was the first callback, first concert like that where I just played LUCIE ARNAZ, singing, that I'd ever done. And they gave me a very small chunk of money when you think about it today. And I had to put together 90 minutes of music. And because it's Irving Berlin, you can't do an evening of Irving Berlin without all of the Fred Astaire numbers and all the dance. So I had to hire 3 dancers. We did tons of tap and dancing and all the musical stuff that he wrote and the Tin Pan Alley things and the beautiful ballads. And oh my God, it was wonderful. But that show became the auspices, the basis of my nightclub act for the next year. And it morphed into Gershwin and Cy Coleman and other things. And I've been doing concerts for 30 years because I got that offer.
And are there any Berlin songs in your current, in your Feinstein show?
Yeah, because I do a piece on Annie Get Your Gun.
Right, okay, that makes total sense. Well, let me ask you about a couple of other well-known folks. For example, did you get, notice how I load these questions because I'm expecting, please tell me the answer isn't no, but did you get a message or a note from Katharine Hepburn when you had a blessing in your life?
Oh, I've gotten several notes from Katharine Hepburn. I framed every single one of them because I wanted to name a daughter after her. If I had a daughter, I knew I was going to name her Katharine and spell it the way that Katharine spells her name, Katharine. And I just always admired her as a human being and as an actress and whatever. And so I had my first child, and it was a boy. And we had a mutual friend, Ben Strobach, who was her stage manager for many years and was our stage manager on a couple of shows. And through Ben, she found out that I had that plan and it didn't work out. I had a boy. So she said, oh, so sorry that Katharine didn't come into the world or blah, 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 blah. But congratulations. And then I got pregnant again. And my plan was, if it's a boy, his name would be Joseph. And if it's a girl, it's going to be Katharine. It'll be Katharine Luckinbill. And I had a boy. She sent me another letter. So sorry, it's a powerless time for women in this night. She's going to save her time to come at a different whatever. It was a very sweet letter. And then I got pregnant again. And I had a girl. And she sent me the most lovely note. Congratulations, I'm so delighted to finally be a part of your family. And then she said, but poor girl, that A, meaning the second A in Katharine that nobody ever spells right. She said, poor girl, that A, well, at least it'll teach her to fight.
Isn't that lovely? At least it's just going to have to, every time it's, no, it's not Kathe, it's Katha.
Right.
But, oh, come on. I mean, what wonderful memory. We were talking last week, in fact, to a producer and a writer, a composer, a theater guy who has tons of money and spends it on memorabilia. And he was telling us all his favorite stuff, his memorabilia that he collects. You shouldn't know from the guy has like the thing that Newt Rockney, when he was killed in the plane crash, he was holding like a medallion in his hand and a crucifix. And this Jewish guy now owns that medallion and crucifix that was pried from the bones of Newt Rockney. And then like, okay, so do you have anything like that? What's your favorite, what is your memorabilia that you most cherish?
Well, first of all, when you tell me that story, I say to myself, I don't think I would want that.
No. If it were a Mogan David, I would say,
oh, clearly it didn't work.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But what about yours? What do you have on your walls or in your vaults, or that you're like, oh, either from your parents or other aspects of showbiz?
God, I suppose there's a lot of it maybe if I go and wander around my house while I'm talking to you. I have the knocker from the door of our house on Roxbury Drive before they renovated the whole house to the point where you can't recognize it anymore.
Yeah.
That means a lot to me because that's a huge memory in my life of people knocking on the door, walking up to our house and banging on the door all the time. And we had this 5-foot-tall, wonderful little Japanese woman who used to pad across the whole entire hallway, and she couldn't see the little peephole because she was too short. So she would just open the little brass door and she would go, "She no home," and slam the door. And then, so when they were tearing the facade of the house down when the new people bought it, and I walked over to the guy, and he was horrified that I was there the day they were doing that. I just happened to be driving by, and he asked me if there was anything at all, anything that was a part of the house that I would like to have. And geez, I don't know. So I took a tour around inside and looked at my house all torn up, which was horrifying. Don't ever do that, by the way. That gets an option for you people. Don't go back and watch them tear your house apart. But I finally said, you know what? Here's one thing. are you going to change the door, the front door? And they go, oh, yeah, and a whole new door going in. I went, great. Could I have that little brass knocker, please? And that's what I took.
Wow. I knew Laurence Luckinbill married you for your knockers. I just knew it. Thank you very much. Comedy right there on the program, ladies and gentlemen. So that's a lovely. And what about another item, or an autograph, or a picture, or just a thing, a memento?
My God, what an interesting question. I mean, there's hundreds of them, I suppose. They're all, everything in my house is a memento. I have artwork that my father had on his walls. I have artwork my mother had on her walls. I have a wonderful portrait of her. I have all kinds of memorabilia from shows I've been in. Elephants. I collect elephants, and I have all kinds of wonderful little collections from around the world, and framed artwork from Sister Carita, who was a wonderful artist and who ran the art department at the high school I went to, Immaculate Heart High School. What else? I mean, I don't, that's an interesting question. I suppose if I made a list, it's probably more than I even remember. I'm walking through my kitchen as I'm talking to you, and I see that I have it's a soup tureen, but it's in the shape of a big hen with her little chicks around her, and you take the top off, and there's a big ladle inside, and little eggs around the bottom, and you're supposed to put soup and stuff in there. But it was actually my mother and my father's when they had their first house in Chatsworth, and I think it might be the only piece that still exists from those days. It's traveled with me everywhere ever since my dad died.
Wow. And if they serve chicken soup out of it, it's a little bit sick, but it's still a lovely thought. It's a little.
That's why I don't do that.
Now, you mentioned the Sacred Heart thing. You're obviously not Jewish, and I'll forgive you that. Yeah.
Immaculate Heart. But you know what? I have often felt more Jewish than anything else because I consider myself a recovering Catholic. And I grew up with an entire family of Jewish people after my mother married Gary Morton, and his family became a part of our family. Morty Goldapper and his cousin Sid Gould. And I grew up with the whole Jewish faith, even though he wasn't very religious, I would say, but the traditions and the speak and thought processes became a part of me for it still is for a long time. And I probably have more Jewish friends than I have any other religion, except maybe Unity, which is, if I have a religion, it's that, which is not a religion, it's just a
you just get together, sing songs and stuff, and then the Unitarian. Can you do hymns?
It's not Unitarian. Unity is different from Unitarian. Unity is a way of looking at life, a philosophy, a spiritual philosophy for practical living, basically. And it takes all denominations. Anybody can be a part of Unity culture. You can be David Friedman is one of the people who go to Unity out in Norwalk with me when I'm there every week. His partner, Sean Moniger, is the minister at Unity of Norwalk, and David is as Jewish as you can get.
There you go. So, it's nice that Jews can finally be united over something. I'll tell you.
Over something.
There you go. We are talking, by the way, with LUCIE ARNAZ. So now I've asked some questions about you. Let's now got to get to some questions about your growing up and your parents. I didn't realize that you spent some of your teen years in New York, or even preteen years. How did that work out? That you weren't in California?
You mean before I was like 15 or so?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't very long. It was about a year. My mother did a Broadway show called Wildcat, and they had to move us to New York to go to school. So I was there from 61, 62, something like that.
Do you remember seeing your mother in Wild? Hey, look me out.
Oh, God, yeah, sure. I saw that show maybe 18, 20 times. Mostly out of town. We would schlep over to, see how Jewish I am? I said schlep. We would go to Philadelphia when they were trying the show out, and I remember crawling around, underneath the seats up in the balcony and switching people's purses. I thought that was fun.
Oh, nice one. There we go. So after you've seen the show a couple of times, you got to do something to entertain yourself. Well, when you would see your mom,
I saw the show a lot.
Well, that's the thing. Could you watch your mother up there, and did you see your mom in fancy clothes and makeup, or could you get into the show as a show? How did you react?
I totally got into the show as a show, and it probably is one of the reasons that I ended up in theater now. because when you're that age, you're very impressionable. And I was all about the choreography, and I hung out with the gypsies backstage, one of them of which we just lost, Valerie Harper. She was in that show with my mother. And I love the music. It's Cy Coleman, Carolyn Lee. You know, I didn't know that then. I didn't know who those people were, but I grew up on that stuff. And then, you know, years later, I went to see Mame when I was about 14. And I saw Angela Lansbury climb down those stairs and sing It's Today. And I just knew in my soul that that's where I was supposed to be. Like, not necessarily in the music world per se, like my father was or my brother was, not necessarily television specifically like my mom. I saw myself very clearly. I thought, that's me. That's where I go. I go there.
Have you ever, it just occurred to me, have you ever yourself been in a production of either Wildcat or Mame?
No, you know what? I've always told people that I would love to do a production of Mame, and it's never come about for one reason or another. And Wildcat, we were going to do a reading of it, like an encore series a few years ago, and I don't know what happened to that. It's not a great show per se. I mean, when you look at the book now, it's kind of corny. It's actually, even my mother would say, it's just a musical version of The Rainmaker.
All right.
You know,
well,
which
so it's
110 in the
Shade.
Shade was a musical version of The Rainmaker, but it's the same author, and he kind of just copied it and made it oil. It's a little bit corny today. I don't know that it would work, but some of the music is great.
Yeah.
It was Cy Coleman's first Broadway show, really the first Broadway show that, you know, put his name out there.
So when you did get, and now come the Lucie and Desi questions. So when you got to act with her on her show, again, what was going through your, were you just trying to impress her, or you didn't even think about that? She said, oh, no, let me do my job. Let me be an actress myself. And it could have been any actress you were acting with.
Well, she was my mother, so of course I'm trying to do good, you know. I mean, she invited me onto the show to learn about the business, and I wanted to please her and make her proud, as you would if your mother wasn't the one on the show, you know, if she was just at home watching you. But mostly I was invested in learning about acting, and we learned a lot about music because they did a lot of musical numbers on that show. And so without realizing it, I ended up with a tremendous musical education at the same time, which I talk about in my show, because that was the beginning. You know, we shot that show in front of a live audience, and when we did the musical numbers, maybe 6 or 7 a season, and we had 6 seasons of those, I said, like, we were doing what Glee is doing now. You know, long before there was a Glee, we were doing those full-fledged, big, built-out musical extravaganzas on this half-hour sitcom. And I learned a lot from that. So, yeah, I wasn't, you know, once I got into it, I wasn't really thinking about her. I was thinking about my job.
Now, also,
I mean, she was my mother, you know, so I didn't look at her like, oh my God, it's Lucille Ball, I have to please her.
well, sometimes it's even worse. Sometimes that's even more of a thing. It's like, oh, who cares? It's my mom. That can be even more intimidating for some people.
But I had watched her work for years, you know, and I'd been on the set a lot. I knew a lot of the crew and the people, so it was much more comfortable than that. And they were very, very welcoming to both my brother and I. They taught us a lot, and they were patient, and I learned a lot. It was a fantastic education, those 6 years. It really was.
Now, you have said that you got different aspects of your personality from both your mom and your dad, and that your dad was like the businessy guy. He could make a deal like nobody's business. And you got your work ethic from your mother, but you're more like your dad. How does that in later life now? Is it the same as you were 30, 40, 50 years ago, or have you morphed more into one and more of the other?
Well, I think like with anybody, you know, I don't know your parents like you know mine, so I can't tell, but I bet you would tell me that you have a little bit of both of them in the way you behave today, right?
Oh, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not uncommon, but I do find that I do business in the way that my father probably would, more than my mother, because my mother was not a business person. She didn't want to be. That's an interesting misconception that is out there, which is all very lovely, that people want to credit her with, you know, she was the first woman to run a studio. She was a businesswoman. She was the first big businesswoman in Hollywood. And I want to say, people, that's all very nice. It's nice that you think that. And she'd be very flattered, but she'd be the first person to say, oh, for Christ's sakes, no, I wasn't. Because she only had to run the studio for a very short period of time, and she didn't really run it. She had the suits. She had people that my father had hired who were brilliant, who worked with my dad. When she divorced my father, he stayed on for a while, and then they decided that wasn't going to work anymore, and she had to buy him out, and that left her with the other half, which meant that she was the head of the studio. She hated it. She only wanted to go and work on the stage, be the Lucy character. So she left all the business to these other people. And she would come home and literally tell us that, you know, God, I had to go to another frickin' meeting today or whatever. She hated it. And as soon as she could, she sold it to Gulf and Western, which became Paramount, which is Viacom, which is the world. The world. They own the world.
Yeah. So
anyway, so it you know, I think I'm more like my dad in business, I'll say, to go back to what I was saying, because he liked it and he was really good at it. And he had a way of talking to people that never put them down. He always started with something positive. If he had a deal to make, he was very clever and very funny when he was talking to people, and sort of assuage, you know, them a little bit before he would decide what he wanted. And my mother was the polar opposite. She didn't have any patience for any of that stuff. She only just get me the damn script and make it right and get it fast.
And you also recall her like just sitting with you guys, being a mom and playing cards and making eggs for breakfast and making the time to do that, because she actually liked to do that more than running the studio.
She likes to be Lucy. She liked to be on stage. Oh. Working with the scripts, coming up with the shtick that would make it funnier, and turning that brilliant writing into gold. That's what she wanted to do with her time, not run a studio.
Right. No, I mentioned, but also you cherish the times when she was but she was a mom. She was, you know, behaving, spending time with her children and being at home and having those moments together, which we don't really think about so much.
Right. That was very rare because of how hard she worked. Not necessarily running the studio, but going to work and rehearsing and all the different shows, every single week, a different show, a different rehearsal period, and it was late, and we had schedules with homework, and we had to get to bed at a certain time, and as we got older, we were in our, 8, 9, 10, 11, we got to have dinner with her, but we didn't see her very much, and I felt sorry for her in a way, because she didn't get a chance to be the mom that she wanted to be. And then because they were divorced, her only time to really hang with us would have been on the weekends, and my father had us on the weekends. So she didn't get that either, It's, when I think back on it, she really got the short end of the stick, I guess.
How is your brother? The guy living
How is he?
Yeah. How is he doing? How often do you get together with him? How is he?
He's okay. He lives in Nevada. He's about a half hour out of Vegas, and he owns and runs the historic Boulder City Theater up there, and they produce shows. Unfortunately, his beautiful wife Amy passed away almost 5 years ago, I think now, of brain cancer, and since then we haven't seen too much of Desi. He likes to stay quiet, and he's a self appointed hermit. He said, "I'm a hermit, leave me alone." But he's okay. But thank you for asking.
But also it makes us wonder, like, the custodian of the legacy. And it's like, how much time do you have to deal with, we want to use your mom's image on a lunchbox. We want to put reruns on TBS. And this and this. I mean,
well, they're two separate things. First of all, let me just be specific, because that's a misconception that should always be clarified. If they want to do reruns of the show, they go to CBS, because we do not own I Love Lucy anymore. That changed in 1957 when my father sold his 50% back to CBS so that they could make enough money to buy a studio and get to be a bigger production company. So Desi and I and our family have not owned I Love Lucy for decades and decades and decades. Okay. So that's all CBS. As far as the imagery, to put her face on something, if it's a Ricardo face or just a regular Lucille Ball or Desi Arnaz, yes, we have an entire business that we have to run in order to police that. And we've gone further than policing it now. We figure if you're going to do it, let's do it right. and we have a wonderful relationship with CBS and the merchandising department over there. That is a full-time job. And I brought my daughter, Katharine, into this end of it now to sort of help us regulate that, because she came from a business world education. She started out as an actress and a singer. She's still a wonderful singer, but then she took a detour and went into the corporate world and has ended up working for everybody from Amazon to Snapchat to Microsoft to, big PR firms. So she understands the lingo with all the deal making and all that stuff. And she's been incredible in helping us figure out how to do it in today's world with social media and just do it better than we've done it before. And so it's a full-time gig when I'm not doing concerts or holding my new grandson, Kate's new baby. She just had a baby boy, and my son Joe just had a baby girl, so that's taken up a lot of time.
Joe is in a band. Is he still doing anything creative stuff, or what does he do?
Yeah, my son Joe plays in a couple of bands up in Connecticut and that area. I think one of his bands is Joe Luckinbill, just plain Joe Luckinbill band, but there's all Plasm, I think, is his other funky, wonderful rock.
Plasm?
It's not really a rock band. I don't know what Joe calls his music. It's sort of a combination of rock and Latin and pop, and it's really cool. But he's a music teacher too. He plays incredible guitar. He teaches music throughout the Connecticut and New York area, and has children as his students and adults. And so he's a busy boy.
Well, good. Now, speaking of we got to go back and ask this one too, because one of the things that you did some movies. You were trying to get a movie career going, and probably one of the films that did not help is that, and this is important to me as a Jew, you were in the remake of The Jazz Singer. You were actually, you won or you were nominated for a Golden Globe for this movie, where nothing else got well reviewed, but you did. Question: first of all, do you have any memories of Larry Olivier, who was in the film?
Oh yeah, many actually. First of all, he was very ill when we were making that film. He was in the middle of severe cancer treatment, and he was very weak. And he couldn't have been nicer or more accommodating to the new director that was just put on the film. Sidney Furie was let go, and Richard Fleischer was brought on just as I joined the film after they had fired the first girl, Deborah Raffin. It was a big, flux of things. But by the time I got there, it was a very pleasant set. Neil was adorable, very easy to work with. I thought he was sensational as a person. He had never acted before, and he knew he didn't know anything about it. But he allowed Dick Fleischer to teach him, and he trusted him, and he trusted me. I would tell him little things here and there, and he would say, "Oh, okay, I get it. I know how to do that." And then Olivier was just so accommodating. You would think of Sir Laurence Olivier, the greatest actor that was ever lived. And, if a director wanted to tell him how to do a scene, that he would say, "My dear boy, please, I know how to do this." He was never like that. He was like, whatever you like, Richard, whatever you like, Dick.
That's lovely.
And I only had one scene with the man, so I can't say I've acted.
Well, one scene
with Laurence Olivier. If you remember, the one scene I had with him, I came in, my line was, "How do you do, Cantor Rabinovich?" And he looked at me, looked at Neil, and ripped his collar and said, "I have no son," and left.
It's a big scene.
So that's my big scene with Laurence Olivier. But I thought he was a charming man, and I got to sit next to him for the entire day when we were filming the concert version at the Pantages Theater, because we were part of the audience, and they would cut to us from time to time. So for a lot of the day, we were sitting in those two seats together, and in between takes, we would talk, and he would ask me about my family, and I would ask him about his. And it was a very precious time in my life. He died not too long after that.
Wow. Oh, I'm so glad I asked. Can I ask? So that movie actually has wonderful memories for you, because I must have wondered when it flopped so badly, though. Your agent must have been like, "Oh, how are we going to get past this?" And
no. I didn't. Those agents, first of all, I don't even think an agent got me that film. I didn't even have an agent. I don't know. I can't even remember having an agent. I remember that Sidney Furie came to see me, and they're playing our song on Broadway, and hired me from that. And then by the time I got out of the show and flew to LA to start filming the movie, he was fired. And suddenly there was this new director and blah, blah, blah. But I found it an amazing experience. I had a fantastic time. I got to work with Neil Diamond and listen to that music every single day and be in a Winnebago with him, and while he's composing songs for the movie. I mean, hello? And work with Laurence Olivier. Yeah. And then Larry came to visit me. I was dating my husband, Larry Luckinbill, who you did a wonderful interview with, by the way. I loved listening to that. It was a fantastic interview. But Larry would come to visit me on the set, and at the end of the movie, when we were almost finished with the movie, I got pregnant with my first child on that film. So I have great memories about working on that movie. As a matter of fact, there's a scene in the movie where my character tells Franklin AJ, his buddy in the film. Yeah. It's the scene where
he's the only black guy in the movie.
Crazy, and he's throwing things around in the recording studio. He's being a real jackass. And I have just gotten back from the doctor. And Franklin says to me, "How did it go at the doctor's?" And I say, if you remember, "Another rabbit bit the dust," which means she's pregnant.
And you were, and you just found.
She wants to tell Neil Diamond's character, right? And Franklin says, "Maybe not right now. It's probably not a good time." Well, that morning that we shot that scene, I had just come from my own gynecologist who told me that, in fact, I was going to have a baby.
Mazel Nicole. Boy, that film has more good memories for you than anybody else associated. That's so wonderful. Speaking of good memories.
Yeah, and you know what? The reviews might not have been very good for the film as far as like New York Times and people like that, Variety. But we won the People's Choice, the People, what is it? The
People's Choice Award.
Oh, God, I forgot the name of the award now. So long ago.
Well, you were nominated for
CinemaScope Award of the Year, which is the audiences as they leave the theater, they fill out these cards, right? And it won over Ordinary People and all these other fabulous shows. So it was a people-loving film, but the critics really hated Neil. They hated what Larry did, Laurence Olivier. It was very sad. You're right. I escaped unscathed, and I got nominated, which was fine. But no, it didn't hurt my career. I actually got another film from EMI, the same production company that produced that. Immediately after that, gave me a film that I could, have all to myself, called Second Thoughts, which we should have all had second thoughts before doing, because it wasn't that good. So.
How do you know? I mean, when the movie's over, you go to the premiere, you watch it. Do you sit there with a sinking feeling, or do you trust your gut and they're like, this just didn't happen?
I didn't get to go to the premiere. I was having my baby when it came out.
More important, even better. Okay.
It's the truth. I didn't get to go to the premiere because I was at Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles having Simon.
Oh, Simon. Oh, there was another. Wait. Oh, I'm so sorry. How many kids do you have?
I have 3 of my own and 2 stepchildren. Larry had 2 when I married him, so we have 3: Simon, Joe, and Kate.
So what does Simon do?
Simon is an artist. He paints, and he's a nutritionist guy. He's all about health foods and spirulina and making potions for people and stuff like that.
Oh my! Is there a way that he can make pastrami and borscht healthy?
He wouldn't touch a pastrami if you put I don't know on it.
Flax seeds, even if you
not even.
Oh, that's a shame.
He's a vegan vegetarian's worst nightmare. He's beyond any. He has to juice his food.
Black sheep of your family. I'm sorry, it just is a Jewish sort of. No, but speaking of Jews, because that's one of the things I wanted to talk about the Jazz Singer also, because it's got the whole Jewy thing to it. But speaking of Jews, you said the funniest person, Jewish or not, or any, that you've ever met was Neil Simon. So please tell us something funny that he said or did. Why Neil Simon? I mean, we can tell.
Oh, God.
What?
How do I nail it down to something funny that he said? I've never been with the man when he didn't make me scream with laughter. He was very subtle. He never looked like he was going to say anything funny. He didn't have a routine. He didn't talk like people who were trying to be funny. He just said things that were hilarious. And, oh, God. Okay, here's the best Neil Simon story that I have. Takes a second to tell it.
Sure, please.
We were going to move out of New York City and move up to Westchester into Katona, New York, to buy this beautiful piece of property up there. and I had done They're Playing Our Song, and I told Neil about it after that because we were friends, and he said, "What? They're moving out of New York. Where are you going?" I said, "Well, we're just going to live up in the country, Neil. It's about, it's an hour, something like that, maybe 40 minutes. But it's 15 acres. It's gorgeous. There's a pond." He goes, "What are you going to do? Nobody's going to be able to get you to audition stuff on your way up." I said, No. I'll come here. And he goes, "I don't think you should do that." I said, "Oh, no, it's a beautiful place to raise my kids." And he said, "Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea." I said, "It's not that far, Neil. It's 45 minutes, door to door." He said, "Big house." You're not laughing.
I got it. That's quick. Also, you're vocally you're breaking up on our side of the phone suddenly.
Oh, see?
How many bars do you have on your thing?
I'm on a regular phone.
Oh, there you
I'm
go.
not on a bar.
Well,
I'm on a regular walk around the house mobile phone.
Well, how many bars does your receiver have, or the holes that you have to dial one after the other, around and around in a circle? I'm just.
No.
We've been talking, by the way, with the delightful and wonderful Lucie Arnaz. Please go see her. You have a couple of opportunities from September 30th through October 2nd at Feinstein's 54 Below. What is the name of the actual show that you're doing? Do you have a title?
It's called I Got the Job, Songs from My Musical Past. And it's also in White Plains on the 27th.
Sorry, thanks for reminding me.
The White Plains Performing Arts Center.
So, last question or two for the wonderful Lucie Arnaz. First of all, you mentioned and you complimented me so nice on the interview that I did with your husband, Larry Luckinbill. I hope you feel as good about this interview as well. How's he doing? Is he okay?
Oh, he's doing great. Thanks for asking. He's sitting in the other room looking at me, wondering why I'm talking so loud.
Oh, that's because you're talking to a Jew. This is why. Yeah.
He's doing great. Thank you very much. Still working on his memoir, which he talked to you about, getting to the end of that.
Good.
And, he's going to be celebrating his 85th birthday in November, and I've never known a smarter, sharper, savvier, sexier 85-year-old ever anywhere.
Whoa. Mint Mom, that's, I want that on my tombstone. You have to write it very small, but still, it's God willing. Let me also ask Lucie here, and wait, I've lost the question I was going to ask you. Oi, where the hell was it? Everybody talks to each other.
I love how you go into a Jewish song.
What else am I going to go into? Oh, yeah. The movie. There's going to be that movies apparently about your parents, Lucie and Desi, that you're working on or involved in. What's happening with that bio?
Well, we have a beautiful script written by Aaron Sorkin.
Right.
Thank you so much. Can't believe that we have this incredible writer writing this story. And Kate Blanchett has been cast to play my mother, and she's amazing. And that's where we are right now. We've just gotten the script, and we're talking to directors. We haven't got anybody that we went to our first guy, and he's very excited about it, but I'm not allowed to say who.
All right.
And hopefully this coming year we will be into the whole pre-production and get it done finally.
So you are the producer. You guys are doing it. It's
no. It came to us through Escape Artist Productions, Steve Tish's company. Todd Black and Jenna Block came to me and asked if they could tell this story, and that they wanted it to be a story about the relationship. Obviously, I Love Lucy is a part of their relationship, but it's a story, it's the love story. And first we thought it might be a 6 or 7, 8-part miniseries type thing, but once we got Aaron Sorkin involved, he decided he thought maybe it could be a feature, wanted it to be a feature, which I don't know if you can tell their whole story in 2 hours, but it's an artist's rendering, let's put it that way, of their relationship at a certain period of time when they were making I Love Lucy. And what he's written is really brilliant and beautiful. And so it's going to be done by Amazon Studios.
Oh, okay.
They're producing it with Todd Black. And they came to us, so we're co-producers, and I'll be consulting producer on it, but didn't start out with us. I would never decide to do another project about them.
Because you did a documentary.
This one didn't seem like something we should turn down. It sounded like it was going to be a class act, and I'm very, very excited about it.
And you did a documentary about your
I did a documentary in '93, with home movies and interviews with lots of people who grew up with my folks and worked with them at the studio or went to school with them or whatever, while all those people were still here. And I'm glad I did, and then combined it with scrapbooks and movie clips, and it was just a daughter's look at who these parents really were, what they were like as people, why they made the choices that they made. And I didn't know it was going to be a documentary when I started doing it. I just started interviewing people that were still around.
Yeah.
Because CBS, who we do have a lovely relationship with today, but back in those days when my mother had just passed away, they made a really stupid film, really low class, not just piece of crap. And I thought, geez, there's got to be better stories out there, more depth, more explanation of who they were and why they did what they did and how they got that success and how come they couldn't stay together. And so I started asking people, and I had 3 years of interviews before I knew what I was going to do with it. And then I took it out and took it to NBC, and they let us do a documentary, and it won an Emmy. So there you go. Who knew?
Well, mit mazel on that, of course, and mit mazel. I guess, first of all, also let us know what else you might be working on creatively, because after people see you at 54 Below Feinstein's, what are you going to be in anything?
No, that's what I do this, yes, what I'm going to be doing is producing that film next year, which is going to tie up a lot of my time. I canceled a lot of concerts this past year in May and June because my little grandbabies were being born. And but when I'm not producing, I'm doing concerts. And next year, in between whatever the movie schedule is, I have a brand new show that I'm putting together about, it's being about the age that I am and taking a look at music through the eyes of a 68-year-old woman. And there are certain songs that you approach completely differently when you're a woman of a certain age who's now a grandparent. Oh. And I'm also doing a new show with Clint Holmes, who I adore, wonderful jazz singer and a good friend. We're doing a duet show next year. And that's it. That should keep me ridiculously busy. And I want to be with my kids, my grandkids. So I'm trying to carve out time for that because one of them is in Connecticut and the other one's in Los Angeles, and I live in Palm Springs.
Okay, wow. All right. So, but last question then. If you had to choose one moment that is your proudest moment in your career, because I'm sure you're very proud of being a grandma and raising your kids, and of course. But if you were to pick a career moment, greatest moment for you?
Oh, no. I don't know if I could do that. I really don't think I could do that because they've all been stepping stones, and one just as important as the other for one reason or another, even if it was a mistake, sort of like I said, second thoughts we should have had. But I learned by doing that how to choose better material and how to look at the directors. And, you learn from everything. So the whole career is a work it's a work in progress, and I am proud. Certainly, you heard from my voice how proud I was to tap dance with Tommy Tune and My One and Only. I mean, that's an accomplishment. How I look at what I did in Pippin, hanging upside down on a trapeze 20 feet above the stage with no nets and no wires, and that was an accomplishment I'll never be able to top. But it's just a unique, bizarre accomplishment. Working with Laurence Olivier was an amazing, but I wouldn't consider any of them my best thing. I don't know that I could do that. Maybe it has. I hope there's never a best.
You're always hoping that the next one is going to be the.
I hope there's never a best. I don't want there to be a best. I just want there to be more.
Lullaby. And I've got to say, you're right also about learning from mistakes. I can't tell you how many circumcisions I botched until I started getting them right and doing them well. Thank God I did eventually. And still 1 out of every 10, there's a gender reassignment thing going on. But other than that, it's been good. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with the wonderful LUCIE ARNAZ. It just remains for me to thank you very, very, very much.
You're quite welcome, and thank you for putting up with my speaking away from the phone so that I didn't have to hear my echo. This interview will echo with me for many, many years.
Oh, in our hearts as well. LUCIE ARNAZ, shalom to you.
Shalom.